In this video, we will discuss Make It Clear strategy. We will share one very concrete proactive strategy that can help make our expectations clearer for children and thereby improve the likelihood that children follow our directions. We call these effective commands or directions. Sometimes getting children to do exactly what we ask them to do the first time can seem impossible. Think about some of the commands related to misbehaviors that you find yourself repeating continuously throughout a school day. What often happens when students do not obey our commands is that we repeat commands over and over. But when we keep repeating our commands, we may teach our students that they don't need to listen the first time. We don't really mean what we say. Think about how many times children are given a command each day. The average parent gives 17 commands in half an hour and 400 a day. And that number rises to 40 in half an hour or 1,000 for children with behavior challenges. Are you surprised to hear these numbers? What's more, the average preschool child obeys 1 out of 3 commands, or we say normal children fail to comply with their parents' requests about 1/3 of the time. Children of parents who give lots of commands actually obey even less. And children of parents who give an excessive number of commands develop more behavior problems. No surprise, few adults are aware of the actual number of commands they give their children every day. So it is important for us as teachers to reflect on which students are receiving commands most frequently and reflect on whether we are showing the same pattern. The good news is that there are ways to change these. Research shows that how adults tell children to do things can impact how likely children are to obey. The words we use to tell children what to do can affect how likely they are to listen. If we use proactive words, make our expectation clear, and have clear communication, we are likely to have good and expected outcomes. Think about what you mean when you say, "be good to a child." Think about examples of what being good could look like. Because there are different ways to interpret this command is an ineffective command. Be good is not specific and clear. It did not tell the child exactly what behavior you wanted them to do. Or you tell the child be good to help, to play, or to watch TV. It is hard for children to do the right thing when they don't know exactly what they are supposed to do, and it can feel really unfair to get into trouble when the directions they are trying to follow are unclear. So how do we make our commands directions as clear and effective as possible? Now, we are going to share with you some tips and guidelines to make our commands effective. This is how we get the most bang for our buck. Of course, some children will follow our commands no matter how we deliver them, and some will not follow directions right away, even if worded perfectly. But these guidelines make our commands as clear as possible and give kids the best chance to follow them. Here are a few things we can do to make our commands effective. We need to be direct, not questions or suggestions. It makes sense that we use indirect commands, questions or suggestions. That's often how we talk to other adults, and it may feel more polite, but it's also misleading. If we ask a child, "Do you want to clean up?" it's fair for them to say no. When we say let's to a child, we usually don't mean let us. We usually mean you. For example, let's wash our hands. Usually you mean that you want the child to wash their hands. If that is true, reframe this as a direct command. Please go wash your hands. We will avoid using the phrase that make it sound like our command is optional. For example, we would avoid the phrases, "Can you please?" "Could you?" or "Would you?" "How about you?" "We." An effective command should also be specific, not vague. We want to be sure children know exactly what we want them to do. Think back to all the different things each of us thought of when we saw the phrase, "be good." Instead of "be good," choose one specific thing the child can do right now that would count as being good from your point of view. For example, keep your hands to yourself in your pocket. Use walking feet in the hallway like this, you model to the child. An effective command should also be positively stated instead of negative. Just like with rules, we want to say what we want the child to do rather than what not to do, so the child knows exactly what we are looking for. A child might comply with a don't stop command, but still might not be doing what you want. If we say don't run, children can skip and they actually are following our direction. Instead, say exactly what you want the child to do instead of running, such as please use your walking feet. When we give commands, we need to also obtain child's attention first and giving time to sink in. Ideally, we need to make eye contact, getting down on the child's level so the child can really pay attention on what you are saying. Always keep in mind, you can also pay attention on if a child has any receptive language delays or processing difficulties. When we give command, we should give one command at a time instead of a chain of commands, such as you go get your book, read for 1 hours, and then do another hour of writing. Chain commands are hard for both children and adults to remember and feel overwhelming. When we give command, we should also be firm, but use calm tone. We can still say please and be respectful, but we want to convey that we mean business. Firm can still mean calm. No yelling. We keep a calm tone so that the child does not learn that they only need to comply when an adult sounds angry. Commands should be age and developmentally appropriate. Of course, we need to make sure the child is developmentally and physically capable of doing what we want them to do. Finally, use commands only when necessary. Save your direct commands for times when you really need compliance. For example, if you want a child to pass you a piece of paper that fell on the ground but you could really get it on your own, there is no need to use a direct command. Ask the child, "Can you please pass that paper to me?" And if the child responds no or does not respond at all, be prepared to complete the task yourself. It was a question, not a command after all. So again, effective commands are not suggestions or questions. The examples here, can you please, would you please, how about we, why don't you, let's, are not effective because they are suggestions. If we give a suggestion for what we'd like a child to do, such as Jason, would you like to pick up your toys? Then we shouldn't expect or assume that they will necessarily comply because we made it optional. However, if we really want and or need a child to do something, then we should tell them to do it. Jason, please clean up your trucks. Jason, please give Maya a crayon. And if you are worried about sounding rude or mean, remember that being direct and firm can still be respectful, polite, and calm. Let's do some exercises for this. We are going to practice changing commands to a more direct, specific, positive states commands and use one command at a time. The first column has a command that does not follow our effective commands guidelines and can be improved. The first example says, "Stop that screaming." This example is not effective because it tells a child what not to do instead of what to do. The Make It Effective column asks you to rewrite the command in a way that makes it a better and more effective command. There could be many different options, but here we wrote, "Please use your inside voice or use an indoor voice." Now it's your turn. Please make the rest of the commands effective. Please pause the video and revise the commands. How are you doing? Do you have something like these? Instead of saying "no running in the hall," we can say "walk in the hall." Instead of saying "how about we take turns," we can say "you can use the toy first for 30 minutes, then it's Tom's turn." Instead of saying "behave," we can say "please follow directions." Now you have reviewed the effective command examples. How do you feel about using the Make It Clear technique? Have you noticed your style of making commands? Are you tend to use more effective or ineffective ways? Now, let's think about how to apply Make It Clear strategy in your classroom or at home. Please share your thoughts, ideas, and experience in the group session with your teachers.